Deep Dives with Dogs. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of the settlementation or settling of the West. When I'm talking about specifically is the American West, so places like Utah, California, Montana, Texas, New Mexico, a lot of those kind of places out there, um, and a lot of what leads to some of the big booms and some of the perfect times for the West. Uh, Obviously, a lot of the westward expansion kind of comes from something Americans did have. It's kind of a gone feeling now nationally, but was this feeling of manifest destiny. What is manifest destiny? It's basically like the United States will control all the land from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and that's kind of what happens. Obviously, the United States owns land from the Atlantic to the Pacific. You can go all the way. It's one straight line, and hey, look at that. There you go. But it also comes with people trying to just find new lives, trying to find opportunity, you could say. Um, there are different points of big booms. You have the settlement of the Ohio Valley area. So you have places like Ohio, Michigan, uh, Kentucky, Indiana, and places like that. And a lot of that starts from the American Revolutionary War. You have a lot of these troops that can't be paid. The government doesn't have money really for them. And even if they did, it wouldn't really be worth as much right this second. So they're like, hey, we'll have to compromise, and so they give them land. They can pay them in land. And you know what? Land is good enough for a lot of people. You get a few acres of land. Quite a few acres, actually. But so a lot of these people move out to Ohio. And that's why Ohio, if you actually look at its history in terms of population and things like that, it has had a pretty large population for quite a long time in the U.S. Census. Uh, it will probably continue that, but it is a great stepping off point for further westward settlement. People obviously, like I said, go in Ohio, they settle it, turn it into a lot of what was like in the colonies, or the original 13 colonies and 13 states, all that. You have a lot of that, and people will then leave from Ohio to go west. The Oregon Trail, as many know, is a big travel line for people to get out west, and people would go, and they typically leave from Ohio and go from there. It's a good place to step off. Uh, you know, you can head straight west. Obviously, Oregon Trail isn't necessarily the safest, because you're traveling for months to get out west, and that can be kind of draining. You know, people would get supplies and things like that, and there'd be stop points along the way of the Oregon Trail that you could resupply and things of that nature. But a lot of people that maybe wanted to move out west, they'd see that and they'd say, nah, I don't really want to do that. But you have the trickling of settlers heading out west, and you get quite a few people. You get big gold rushes. There's quite a few gold rushes in the United States, and you will get people then rushing out west to look for gold. Obviously, a really big incentive to move is, hey, if I can get rich quick. So you get quite a few towns pop up for gold. And then finally, about 1860s, specifically 1869, you get the first transcontinental railroad. This is the Union Pacific and Central Pacific rail lines. They connect. They kind of go from Missouri to California. It's a little bit like the middle part of the country, basically, to all the way to California. And that cuts down travel time from a month, 2 months, to a week. And that's a big deal. People see that, hey, safe, fast, I'll get on that. A lot more people are willing to move out west that way. Obviously, it doesn't go all the way from the Atlantic to the Pacific, but it's pretty close, about halfway there. So people are more willing to move that way. So you get big rushes of population. You get a lot more people moving out west like that, and they will be more likely to settle, and then you get kind of the birth of what we would consider the Old West. Get a bunch of these settlers moving in, a bunch of these towns popping up real quick, and you get a bunch of the outlaws and the lawmen and ex-soldiers from the Civil War, which just happened, by this point. And then you get other rail lines that pop up. You get the one all the way from the Atlantic to the Pacific eventually, and you'll have quite a bit of travel that way too. And so it really speeds up the settlement of the West. You have these big settlement boosts and things like that because you have people, let's say immigrants coming in, um, and they're like, hey, well, I can start a new little settlement out west, and I'll be perfect, and it'll be great for me, and then I can enjoy my little homestead. And you have Americans too, people that have been in the country for generations that are like, hey, look at that, I can move out west, start a new life for myself and my family. And you'll have kind of what we know today with how the West is and things like that. Eventually the Old West will die off. A lot of these small podunk towns that in the middle of nowhere that didn't really have much of a place to go, eventually they fizzle up. But what is left in their wake is settlements that do last, and they last to today. And then you have the full settlement of the West. And sure, there's a lot of places still out west that are not settled, and probably won't be. Just the environment itself is not very appealing. But you never can say what'll happen. Not truly. But now you know.